What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the economic calendar for tomorrow, what's happening with the earnings that just came out, and what the option chain for SPY is suggesting for the markets alongside the news for Tesla. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I talk about what the chart is suggesting, what you should be watching for going into tomorrow and beyond, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, I just want to mention that what I thought would happen to Tesla ended up not really panning out as well as it could have because Tesla had some bad news. And let me kind of reiterate what I'm trying to say here. So basically, SPY had a crazy parabolic squeeze today, up over 2%. SPY broke all-time highs and closed at 507.6. On top of this, we saw the same thing with the QQQ getting close to all-time highs. We saw Apple rally quite nicely. Nvda exploded, being up over 16% for the day and continuing to pump in the after hours. Microsoft was green. Amazon blew up as well. Same thing with Coinbase and Meta. The stock market rallied and pretty much for the most part saw some very nice green today. And it's typically, as Tesla's a stock with a 2.0 beta, or I think their beta is above 2.0 nowadays, Tesla should have been up two times what SPY was up. So around 4% Tesla should have been up. Tesla should have been up at least 2% at the very least. It was only up 1.36%. It actually started off with a sell-off because of some negative news. And then slowly it got bought back up, trying to play a game of keep up, catching up with the trend. But nonetheless, Tesla was still kind of underperforming because of some bad news that came out. I went over the news earlier today. It's just basically more and more articles are just bringing up what happened in Germany, as we saw lots of locals vote down upon the plan for Tesla to expand its Gigafactory. And then on top of that, a lot of executives are saying that this is not going to let them deter from Tesla and kind of stop expansion plans for the future. And then we also saw some negative news with the Ford Mach-E cutting prices big time, which had a big negative effect on the EV market, and more negative sentiment about the EV market in general, which kind of negatively affected Tesla. So that's why Tesla kind of sold off. It was very, very weak in the morning, underperforming. But then as time went on, it built some momentum. The algorithms kind of like adjusted, and we saw this kind of get bought back up, and it still managed to close green. So we got a decent green day, but just wasn't as strong as what I was hoping for. So now I'm going to break down how this is looking. So as far as Tesla goes, it's a very, very data impacted stock. It's also heavily impacted by news and such. So that's the thing that can make it a little bit unpredictable. But we did still close green with the market. We did try to push with it. So it still got somewhat of a move thanks to that, but it just wasn't as strong as what I was hoping for. Now, the question is what's going to happen for tomorrow? I'm going to talk about some data first, very, very quickly, then break down the charts. Let me just say tomorrow is going to be a very quiet day. Tomorrow is Friday, February 23rd. It's going to be a quiet day because there's no data coming out. We have pretty much no major headlines, major pieces of data, and nothing very, very big for anyone from the Fed or any Fed speakers. Nothing is coming out for tomorrow. It's very, very minor for data. And that's going to be kind of good for the markets, giving it more leeway to do its thing. But then for earnings coming out, we just had Carvana announce their earnings. They're up pretty big, despite the fact that earnings wasn't really that good. Guidance helped save them, and this is actually making big moves in the after hours. Now, that's what's coming out for now, but for tomorrow, we have Warner Bros. Discovery and just a couple of others very, very minor earnings reports coming out. But for the most part, that's going to pretty much just conclude the way earnings are looking, at least for the week. We had Nvidia making the big move that's still dictating the markets. It may even dictate the markets again tomorrow. So that's likely going to happen. But then for now, we'll just be watching some minor earnings and see how it goes. Carvana announced their earnings, which are not looking too good. But once again, the reason why it's soaring is because of guidance. So let's talk about their earnings in terms of estimates. I just want to say that they kind of missed on EPS. We were expecting a loss of 85 cents. So this right here is the expectation. And then in reality, we got a loss of about $1 per share. So that was worse than expected. Revenue was expected to fall 10% to $2.56 billion for Q4. Instead, revenue was actually down 15% to $2.42 billion below expectations. So that was actually not good. We saw retail sales tumble 13% to 76,000 during the seasonally weak fourth quarter, which is not good for them. However, The reason why this thing is soaring in the after hours is because of this right here. They like to use a metric known as their earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and other things that depreciate the value. We're just going to call this like their earnings before the other things. Basically, we're expecting that number to be even stronger than expected because they're saying that uh, with the adjusted earnings, it's going to be above $100 million, and that in turn, okay, that in turn may lead to retail unit sales being slightly up in the current quarter. They also mentioned that for the outlook of Q1, I'm going to be looking at more than a $1,200 adjusted earnings before all those other things, with no expected material one time benefits cost or anything like that. So that's good for them. They're also talking about more and more growth that's coming, and even better than expected adjusted earnings for the upcoming quarter. So that's why the share price began to go up, because the market is so forward looking. And probably a lot of people started shorting Carvana, expecting it to crash because of what we know about Q4, and they use this as a good excuse to pump it and squeeze shorts again. That's typically what the market tries to do, screw over as many people as possible. So that's why Carvana is up. Pretty good guidance, despite earnings not being the strongest. It's still up like crazy. Now, when it comes to SPY, I want to call out something very important for tomorrow. If you guys look at the numbers right over here, you can see we have under about 270, or I'm sorry, 370,000 calls expiring for tomorrow, a little bit around that area. But then for the put side, we have over 770,000 puts expiring for a 2.12 puts to call ratio. The majority of people have puts, and they're expecting the market to tank tomorrow, essentially. But that's not what's happening. And that so far, there's a very good chance we close well above max pain. So the market makers have an incentive to hold the market up, looking at the amount of puts expiring. And then when it comes to Tesla, we were getting some negative headlines today, which is why it was underperforming, but I did see some good pieces of news. Tesla's working to slash the Sentry mode power usage by 40%. And this is actually very big for Tesla. And here's why. So basically, there's something known as the vampire drain. That's when Tesla has like software, and you basically use the software on parked vehicles, and the battery just gets drained when you're using it. And that's something that's very important. So when Tesla loses some of its power when parked, right, that's known as the vampire drain. There are lots of things that contribute to that, from battery temperature, control, the features, and what kind of mode you're using. And right now, there are optional features that could be used to help kind of like contributes to more draining or less. The Sentry mode uses cameras all around the Tesla vehicles, which are primarily there for Tesla's driver assist features. That's going to be very, very important. We're going to be watching to see what that causes. Now, the Sentry mode uses a lot of power. Please remember that. If you basically use that throughout the day, and you just leave it parked essentially, you could still lose 10% of the battery capacity for the long range Model 3 and the Model Y, right? That's going to be very, very important for them. And the engineers have come out and they're saying that they're going to try to reduce that by 40% in a Q2 software update. So basically, you'll save a large percentage of your battery, even if you use Sentry mode, because of this new update that they're basically working on, which is a good piece of news for Tesla. Now, on top of this, I just want to call out that there's been a lot of negative news involving the Giga Berlin because of what happened with the Gigafactory not being able to expand. Not necessarily the end of the world. Don't let that get the best of you. Hopefully, Tesla priced this in already, and this is not going to affect it as much. For other factors affecting Tesla, I just want to call out that Daiwa Capital is still neutral on Tesla. It's the last major rating we got. We might see some new ratings by next week once we see big moves from Tesla and once the market closes. The price price ratio is on a slight uptrend. Tesla is trying to outperform the market. It came down a bit because it underperformed today specifically, but overall, there's a slight improvement in Tesla relative to before. Because remember, the market was holding up and Tesla was sinking. Nowadays, it's not really like that. Today, Tesla did push with the market, but it just wasn't as green as it could have been. So overall, there is slight improvement in Tesla's performance compared to the market, but it's not fully in a parabolic mode that like SPY is. And I just want to make that very, very clear. Fridays tend to be green about 49% of the time. The month of February tends to be a weak month for Tesla, but remember, January tends to be strong historically. This year, it's been kind of like the opposite. January was a weak month for Tesla, and February is showing some improvements. That's because of what happened with their data and the latest report from deliveries and other things like that. Now, when it comes to seasonality, watch for high volatility at 2 o'clock p.m. and also at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those tend to be the most volatile hours. During the end of the day, we did see Tesla pump more as we got closer to close. So we'll see how it does from there. Financial estimates and everything else is still quite strong for Tesla. We have a very, very strong long term future. And we saw many, many analysts, such as James Ford, I believe, who were talking about the AI developments in Tesla and why it's going to be a very important component of their growth. And FSD is estimated to help bring in over $75 billion from what I last read for their overall revenue, at least for the upcoming years, according to many analysts. So far, not bad from Tesla. We'll have to see how well it holds. Let's go over the chart now. Let's break this down. So I just want to call out that Tesla is on an uptrend, right? We had this low here at 189. We made this high. We were slowly going higher and higher and higher. We're also getting a little bit tight right here, so we are kind of forming kind of like a wedge. But I just want to say that Tesla is showing some improvement. It is showing some improvement. We want to see if Tesla can try to break out of this trend right over here. Now, if we were to take like a trend line, we could actually draw out something kind of like this. You can see how tight Tesla is getting. So I do anticipate a big move will be coming soon. We have to wait and see which way Tesla tries to break in. Now, Tesla is trying to uptrend. There's a very good chance it could get closer to 200 so long as there isn't a very negative piece of news. And I think Tesla will eventually get there. We have this nice gap to fill up here. There's also another gap at 207. And when you zoom out of the charts all the way, don't forget that Tesla still has a potential inverse head and shoulders like structure. And once we get a break above 200, there's a very good chance this is going to play out and Tesla has even more upside. But that's going to be a big psychological level. So, what do I see on the chart? Let me make this very simple. Basically, Tesla is very, very affected by the news. So, if we were to turn bearish hypothetically, okay, watch 195. If we lose that, 192 is coming, followed by 190 is critical support. Today we bounced off 191, but like I said before, historically that's not a very, very important level compared to like 190. And then if we try breaking to the upside, I'm going to be watching. I'm also going to be watching this yellow trend line to see if Tesla could hold this. But for the upside, I'm going to be watching 198. If Tesla could break 198, a bigger push could be coming all the way up towards 200. If we could hold above 198, if we break 200, I'm going to be looking for an attempt to get back to 205 and eventually 207 to fill the gap. So what do I think Tesla's going to do? I think that Tesla has an interesting trend where when we open, we tend to like drop and then we tend to bounce. This happened 3 days in a row. This also happened actually, this is almost like 4 days in a row. We kind of like drop and bounce, we drop and bounce, drop and bounce, drop and bounce. So I think we might see something like that tomorrow. Tomorrow we might see Tesla drop a little bit more, retest 195, maybe even a lower level, then rebound intraday and try to make its way back up above this yellow trend line. And I still think that Tesla's going to get a decent close, but look for a little drop, a retest of 195, then a bounce somewhere around this area in the morning. And I think we might show more strength during the afternoon, and Tesla should make a full-on recovery. Now, if Tesla does test the 198 area, we have to try to break this. If we break this resistance, Tesla has the potential to push even higher. We could try to respect a bullish wedge, and we could be looking for a push into the 200s by next week if we could try to get a close above 198. So tomorrow, look for a little drop in the morning. It might drop in the morning, grab liquidity again, come a little bit below that, then rebound somewhere around 195, maybe a little bit lower, and push back up towards this resistance right here at 198, if not 200. So I think a little drop and bounce is coming. I think Tesla's going to try to follow the market. When it comes to Tesla dropping, I want to say something else could contribute to that, and that might be SPY. Now, SPY looks very strong. Let me just call that. It looks very strong. There is a possibility, just like how we opened, we kind of came down quickly, then we got bought back up. But the trend on SPY is bullish. It's very bullish. Could we come down just a little bit, grab liquidity at 506 and then start breaking out? Yes, we can. But here are the levels to watch for. Okay, we're shuffling right now in the 507.5 zone. If we break out, watch 508.5 as resistance, and above that, you're going to be watching 510.5, 512.5, and then 513.5. For support, if we break down, watch 505.5. If we lose this, I would actually become a little bit more concerned for 503 and eventually lower levels. But here's what I think is going to happen. I think they might grab a little liquidity, then start pushing SPY higher. I don't think we're done with the move yet. I think we're going to retest 508.5, and we might even try to break it, and 510.5 plus is coming. And we'll see if we can break that. If we do break it, 512 is next. So I think they may attempt to squeeze shorts again, but just to be safe, let's see how it reacts to 510. So I predict a little drop coming, then a nice bounce and a push up towards 510 plus, and we'll see how it does once it gets that high level. So look for more upside. If we break 510.5, 512 is coming. I think SPY has more upside coming. With the QQQ, the triple Q, I think this has more upside potential as well. Now, it is kind of like pulling back a little bit, could retest this resistance right over here at 438, could drop a little bit more. If we lose 436, I'd become a little bit more concerned for 434. If we hold above 436, as long as we hold above this, I think we're going to be pushing back up towards at least 438 plus. And if we break that, watch for 440. We might try testing the high up here at 440. If that breaks, 442 is next. So I predict we might come down just a little bit and start pushing again. If we could break the high from today, watch for 440, and a new all-time high is going to be coming into the 440s. There's a very good chance it could attempt to do so. Why is that? Another factor is going to be Nvda. Nvda has the potential to push higher because right now it's continuing to break out. We're approaching 800. I think we're going to be watching to see how it reacts to this tomorrow. It's going to likely gap up. Now, we'll see what it does at 800. If we break 800, watch 807, 812, 820, and 825 as resistance levels. Nvidia is a monster. There's no sign of it stopping. If we do reject, watch 790, 782, and then 776. But my gut is telling me 800 is going to break. We're going to be looking for a bigger push towards 820 plus. I predict more upside is coming. I anticipate it's going to make another attempt to push higher. I think there's a very, very good chance it's going to try to break out even more. So watch 800 as resistance. It might try to break that. Nvidia still looks strong. For Aapl, I told you all ultimately I could see 185 coming. We actually came very close to 185 today, but I don't think we're done just yet. This is looking like a very, very nice cup. And also, if you zoom out, this could even be resembling an inverse head and shoulders. We have the left shoulder here, the head, and maybe a right shoulder forming, but we're not done forming the cup or even like the full on head. So I think when we approach our resistance, watch 183.5 and 182.5 as supports. Watch resistance at 184.25. If that breaks, 185 to 185 is coming. If we break that, 186.5 is next. I think this might be forming a cup. So I think that with this uptrend being established, we might see a little liquidity grab in the 183s one more time before we see Aapl push up for 185. So I think the 185s are coming, and I think more upside is likely on the table. All right, guys, that is it for the main five I typically go over. Now let's talk about the other charts out there. Once again, Tesla's nearing a bullish cross in the PPO. It does look like it might slowly approach 200, might drop a little bit first, and then try to make its way up slowly. It's not looking as strong as before because of some bad news that keeps coming out, but there is potential for it to push. And once again, on SPY, I just want to remind you all, we still look very strong. It's still pushing out, looking quite good. For people interested in NEO, the reason why this underperformed is because we had bad news. I believe it was JP Morgan Chase cut their target to $5, so that's some negative news. For SoFi is very sideways. I wouldn't necessarily trade this. It looks kind of stuck between the 8 and 8.2 area, so it looks kind of boring. Not a whole lot's going on with it. ARM is going to retrace to about, I'm looking at 126.8. If we lose this, watch 125 and 119. At one of these levels, I think it's going to bounce. So we'll see if it bounces off 126 or 125. If it fails to do so, it drops a little lower. If it does bounce, it's going to be pushing back to about 132. So watch and see. It's going to drop a little bit, see if it bounces or not. That's going to be key. For Super Micro, it's bullish overall. I want to mention that we're going to be watching support around 950 and then 920 in these areas, see if it bounces off those levels. Because I do think that a little retracement could come, then a bounce. And we're going to be looking at this imbalance around 1040. If that breaks, 1080 is next. I think it might retrace a bit and start pushing for 1040. And if that breaks alongside NVIDIA, we could be approaching 1100. It's still possible for Supermicro. It does not look like it's done quite yet. So I think it's going to drop a little bit and start bouncing, and we could be approaching the high again. For Palantir is kind of sideways. Watch 23.26. If we lose this, we're going to be sinking towards this imbalance at 22.75. If we bounce off 23.26, watch it come back to 23.6 and eventually 25. Otherwise, it's kind of stuck right now. So I think it's going to drop a little bit more, and we'll see if it bounces or not. I just have to see that just to be safe. For the Russell 2000 IWM, we look bullish. If we could break 200, I'm going to be looking for 202. We have a gap to fill up here. I think there's a very good chance it's going to bounce right here and try to push, but it's not that strong. I just want to call that out. It has some strength, but it's not extremely strong like SPY, so it might be very slow to get that push, but I still think it has potential to do so. Carvana is pushing again. We're currently at 63. We'll see how well it holds above 62 and 60. And if it holds those levels, it could push more. Overall, it's bullish thanks to some good guidance. For Microsoft is looking bullish. If we could try to break 412, watch 415. If we lose 409, watch 406. But I think there's a very good chance it kind of like touches liquidity and starts pushing for about 412 and then 415. For Shopify, Shopify, in my opinion, is looking okay. We're going to be watching 74 as support. If we lose that, 72.5 is next. If we bounce off of that, then 78 is coming. But I do want to note it looks kind of weak right now. We had negative news. If we lose 74, 72 is next. We're looking kind of weak. For AMD is looking kind of bullish. And the reason for that is because we got a nice bounce off our 200 EMA, and we have this resistance to watch for at 185. Could retrace towards 178 to 180, then bounce and hit 185. A little drop in bounce seems very probable. I do believe there's more upside potential for it nonetheless. For the VIX, notice that the VIX is about to get a bearish cross in the PPO. Watch 14.02. If we lose that, we have a gap to fill down at 13.05. If we end up losing that support, the VIX is going to turn more bearish, and that's because of the market pushing more, which shows there's more potential for us to do so. The dollar index looking a little bit weak. We're kind of sideways right now. If we reject and we continue to lose this 5 EMA, I'm going to be watching 103.76, which could be bullish for the markets, as this has some downside potential. For Coinbase, we're going to be looking to see if this thing could actually hold above 168. If we hold above this, I'm expecting 170, then 175. If we fail to hold it, if we lose 168, we turn a little bearish, and I could see it retracing to 164. So my gut is telling me it's going to actually hold above this and try to push up higher. But just to be safe, watch 168 to see if we could hold this for now and then break out even higher. For Google, we're very stationary, very sideways, because we're just trading sideways around the 50 EMA. If we lose 145, watch it come down to 144.18. And if that fails us, we're going to come down to 142. If we bounce off this, 147 is coming in 148 plus. Otherwise, we're just trading sideways. It's very boring, and it might just continue to do so. So it's not looking that great. Amazon's looking very strong. It's at 175 right now, continuing to break out. I think it might retrace a little bit to 173 when we open it and then push up for 175.39. So I could see a little bit more juice left, and we'll see how it reacts to 175. If that breaks, 177 is coming next. For Meta, it might retrace towards 482. It might retrace a little bit. If we lose 482, we could sink towards 480. If we bounce off that, we're going to be looking for a push towards 490, then 495. My guts tells me it might retrace a bit, then try to break out. There's definitely potential for it to do so, but just be a little bit careful because it has been pumping a lot, and you can see we have some tight resistance at this 490 area historically. So just be a little bit careful up here. But it does have potential to break out, so we'll see if it could do so or not. If we fail and we lose 483, it's going to be sinking to 480 and 475, by the way. So we'll see if it bounces or not. It still is bullish in terms of the trend, but watch that just to be safe. Anyways, that's it for the video. I think SPY has more juice left. It could push higher. It definitely is not done, in my opinion. We'll see how it reacts to these different levels as we're approaching all-time highs. And hopefully this helps Tesla to some extent. Tesla might drop a little bit tomorrow morning, but then we're going to be looking for a rebound. And sometimes new things could happen to Tesla that even I don't expect, because I can't predict the future and the news that comes out. Sometimes new pieces of news come out for Tesla, and sometimes it gets in the way. So that's why I call out the different levels. Watch both the bearish and bullish levels on Tesla, and just know what I'm anticipating. I think it might drop when we open, and then eventually trying to get a nice rebound. The news will also affect us, so pay attention to that and do what you have to do, guys. I will definitely see you guys very soon on the next one. Tesla in the market to the moon because the long term is very bright. Thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.